Do you celebrate the wins?
Really. One of the most powerful messages that resonated with me that I experienced was a meeting once at Starbucks with Howard. And it was a small gathering of leaders. And Howard was talking in a very open and vulnerable way. And this was like, I don't know, maybe 2015, 16, I don't remember the year. But at this time, 33,000 stores, maybe 25, 26 billion in revenue, massive company. And Howard's getting emotional. And it's almost like he's tearing up, like leaning in, listening, like, what's going on here? And he says something, and he says, the world would be okay tomorrow without Starbucks. We have to go there every single minute and earn our business. And we've worked so hard for this. And we got to tomorrow go out and start again and earn it again.
An entrepreneur straight out of New York City, Michael Chernow was cracking.
What percentage of the world uses coffee on a regular basis?
Yeah, exactly.
Just like, it's got to be the majority, right?
It was interesting. I just saw randomly a few weeks ago, the National Coffee Association put out a stat that coffee surpassed water as the most consumed beverage in the U.S.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it's like more than water. It's like, you're like, what?
Wow.
I was shocked when I read that.
That can't be good, but
I think it's great.
Coffee, my gosh, I've got such a journey with coffee, and I somehow am one of these guys now. I've been able to manage my coffee because I love coffee.
Okay.
I genuinely love coffee, and I'm in recovery. So I'm sober now a long time. And when I got sober, I needed something to totally dive into that wasn't just food, because obviously it's very easy to go from addiction to food addiction. And so I got crazy with coffee. I mean, there was a guy in New York when I was getting sober. He opened up a place called Abbraccio. Do you remember this place?
No.
Okay. So
where was it?
On 7th Street between 1st and 2nd Avenue. Tiny little hole in the wall.
A Brazilian place?
No, it was just I think Abbraccio, it was Italian.
Oh, okay.
And this guy Jamie, and he came from I think Bluebird Coffee.
Okay.
In San Francisco.
Okay.
And he came to New York, and he was like, all I'm going to do is pull espresso. And I was working in an Italian restaurant, and I was crazy about espresso. I was crazy about espresso. If I got an espresso somewhere that wasn't well done, I was pissed, And this guy, Jamie, tiny little place, sat behind the counter.
Just dialing it in, huh?
All day long.
That's
Jazz
amazing.
Music.
That's amazing.
And there was a line out the freaking door. And that guy single-handedly made me a coffee connoisseur.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So I want to, enough about me, your story, coffee. So was it Starbucks that started this journey? Or were you passionate about coffee? What was it?
Like everybody, I think coffee is a transformative beverage. Right? It's more than, and I think that it's more than just something that we need or want, but it's very personal to people, like just your story right now with your espresso shots at Abbraccio. And everybody kind of has their moment with their coffee. And so I think in the subliminal kind of deep space in your head, it's there's something there, and it's something it's like you can't touch it, but it's there, right? And what the magic for me was the experience that Starbucks created, the connection, one person, one cup at a time, millions and millions and millions of times over and over. And they created a really magical space. And I remember when Starbucks came to New York in the late 90s, and I went to the first Starbucks location.
Where was that?
On the west side,
okay.
by Columbus, a little bit north of Columbus Circle. And it was just like, it was transformative. It was like, what's going on here? It's like no more like those little short styrofoam cups, filled with like murky water, but it was like latte art. And like what is this? And like, look at the people. Look how they're behaving. Look how they're like anticipating and waiting. I'm like, what's going on here, right? It's like culture. And that was like something that like it opened up my eyes. It wasn't like a big moment, like that's when it happened. Like, but I think it was just part of that journey. And it's like there's some magic to this beverage here, and and I was like mesmerized and like started like learning about the story of Starbucks and how Howard Schultz had gone from how he discovered the company, how he purchased the company, and I was just like following its journey and like it's just overwhelmed by it, honestly.
It's interesting. I grew up in Manhattan, and I remember my first real Starbucks memory, I think, and I don't have a clear, vivid memory of it, but there was a Starbucks that opened up right on Astor Place pretty early on.
Oh, of course, on the corner.
Right.
Yeah, that's a famous store.
Yeah, so I used to, that was my stomping grounds.
Oh, that's a great store. That's a great store.
Yeah, I mean, was it one of the few first?
It was early, yeah.
So
on the round corner there.
Yeah, right. And when that place opened, I mean, that's where like teenagers, right? Like you weren't able to hang out in bars necessarily. No. But that Starbucks was open till like 1 o'clock in the morning or something.
That was your gathering spot.
That's where we would go. Yeah. A bunch of kids. Yeah. And they had that whole side area that was like kind of unmanned, And we would just line up in there. We'd skate, we'd go to Starbucks. Maybe somebody would buy a coffee. Maybe all of us would get a coffee.
Definitely water. They give you
definitely water. But they just let us chill in there, man. Yeah. Like that's the facts, right? And I think that was like one of the coolest things about that company. So, when did you start at Starbucks? I
started in like after Howard Schultz had retired from Starbucks in 2000, I think something like 2000. Mm-hmm. He came back in 2008. I had met Howard in 2004. And became friends with him, and ended up joining the company in 2012, and got closer to the company, and then ultimately was there for until 2018. So, yeah, it was a bunch of fun years.
Wow! And before Starbucks, what were you doing?
I was in a completely different industry. I was in the home fashion space, so. Home furnishings, so think about like comforters, sheets, and our company made private label for retailers. So like think about like JCPenney, Kohl's, their brands, and we would design and manufacture the pillows and the.
So comforters. It was all wholesale B2B.
Wholesale B2B.
No e-com.
No, it was before it was before the days of e-com, right? It was the days of print catalog, right? Copy so it was that. Like, so it was a lot of that. My dad has a great dad joke. He's like, I went from putting people to sleep to waking them up. So, but that was like, it's like polar opposite businesses, not just, for the occasion, but like do you remember the last time you bought a pair of sheets? A set of sheets? No,
but what's interesting? I will say that like I'm always interested when I get that snail mail from Parachute Home.
It's good, right?
It's good. It's good. Like that snail mail, those guys send out a good catalog.
Snail mail's having a moment.
It is.
It's like online is so cluttered.
We do a great business in snail mail.
Really?
Creatures of Habit. I mean, it's not like, the ROAS on our snail mail is strong as hell. It's like a 10.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
We don't invest a ton of money into it, but it's consistently been very strong for us.
I mean, it almost begs the question, why aren't you with those ROAS?
Well, because there's the fact is that there's a limited resource, right?
Yeah. So,
you know what I mean? Like you don't have everybody's address in the world. So like you only have addresses that are potentially unreachable customers that engaged with your website.
Right,
you know what I mean?
right,
So
right.
you only have so you can continue to beat those down.
Yeah. So the universe is small.
Yeah, and so like it's a small universe, but there's you know we're taking our time with it, we're segmenting it out, you know, but so Cumulus is a business that you have launched out of your sort of experience at Starbucks, seeing the magic of coffee and trying to bring an experience that is different in the world of coffee to the home.
That's right. That's right. You know, I was very fortunate. The years that I was at Starbucks is when cold coffee really started exploding. Starbucks introduced cold brew in 2014. With a fast follow in 2015, they launched the Nitro Cold Brew. And it was, and I think what they do so brilliantly, it wasn't a beverage, it was a platform. Right? They didn't look at it as just like an item. It's like, how do we create a full platform around, you know, cold brew and Nitro Cold Brew? And it was just fascinating to watch the massive shift from hot to cold as people were discovering, and I think that's just so beautiful about that platform. It's so big, and like you paint by numbers. It's like, wow. And like for myself, like I was always a hot coffee drinker. And when I had cold brew for the first time, you know, on a consistent basis was, you know, during, you know, 2014 when Starbucks had launched cold brew. And I don't even know when it happened, but eventually what went from being my occasional second cup or third cup started becoming my only cup. And it's like, there was something about the drinking experience around cold brew or Nitro Cold Brew that was just so much more enjoyable that like I found myself being only a cold drinker. And then like all of a sudden you're like, but like it's really hard to do a high quality cold brew or a Nitro Cold Brew or even like a iced latte or anything like that. And if in a big organization like Starbucks, it's a manual kind of imperfect process. What happens when you leave the greatest coffee shop in the world? What's it like for everybody else? And that was like kind of like this like insight. It's like there's got to be a better way.
So the inspo, like, what was the? First of all, you know what? I would love if you can sort of distinguish the difference between a cold brew and a Nitro Cold Brew, just so for the people that don't know.
Yeah, you know what I hate about the word Nitro Cold Brew?
What?
Is the word nitro. No, really. It like has this like sound like it's like aggressive,
bad branding.
Strong. Yeah, it's like nitro. It's like feels like a muscle car, right? And actually, when you infuse coffee with nitrogen, it makes the beverage sweet and creamy.
Totally.
And it's like silky. It's like a decadent dessert.
That's why I only use the nitro setting on my Cumulus.
Right? It's like,
I mean, like my wife actually, she'll use espresso because she loves the lattes and stuff, and so she has like a little coffee, she has a milk froth or whatever. I personally, you don't need any sugar, you don't need any milk, you don't need any sweetener. The Nitro Cold Brew that comes out of the Cumulus is like you get like an inch head on it.
It's crazy.
It's
right?
amazing.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
We worked so long on that head. Wow. like literally, like probably like, I don't know, I would say 2.5 years to get that like perfect cream. But it's like, you see, you've experienced it. It's creamy, it's sweet. And like the name, like I wish I could like rebrand it, but like whatever.
You can, why don't you?
Call it the Nitra, you know, the Nitro, something softer. But like so what happens is that when you infuse nitrogen into coffee, right, the nitrogen bubble is really, really tiny and very strong. When you think about like a carbonated beverage, like a soda or something like that, you know, CO2, that's like when you're blowing bubbles, right? A big bubble, it looks beautiful, but it pops quicker, and the little bubble lasts longer. So nitrogen makes these little tiny, like microscopic bubbles. So because that's the case, they last longer. And when you stretch coffee and you create like kind of that scaffold around those bubbles with the coffee, and you open it up with that air, I know it sounds like technical, but it's like really like microns, how it's happening. It creates that sweet and creamy experience that you have on the tongue. And if you do it well, it lasts, and then it's effervescent, and it like stays through the beverage. And if you don't do that, it's kind of like a regular cold brew is an amazing cup of coffee. But like, I like to say, with Cumulus, like, and you experience that, like, if you could have nitro, it's like, imagine paying for an economy seat ticket and we offer you business class with no extra charge.
Yes,
like
basically it.
Like, are you ever going to walk past the first section to go to the back of the plane? It's not going to happen, right? So
I love talking with entrepreneurs because what you're doing is very, very hard, right? I mean, there's a lot of competition in the world of coffee, and the hardware business that you're in. There's dinosaurs out there, right? That there's a bazillion boutique coffee companies. That's one thing, but you're like stepping in with like the dinosaurs that have been around forever and ever. The coffee maker businesses, coffee maker companies, countertop appliance companies. What you're doing is really hard.
Or crazy.
But awesome. But yes. So like, I want to, when did the business launched when?
So we officially, launch kind of is a multiple points. Consumer facing.
Made available to
Made available to customers was just for holiday last year in 24, so a few months ago. The company started, or the idea started 4 years earlier than that. So late 2018 is kind of like when we started tinkering. So it's been a journey. And
what does it feel like right now?
Okay. It's like drinking from a fire hose. I was texting with a friend from Brazil today, and it's been a while since we've communicated. And he's like, what happened to you? You fell off the map. I'm like, no, I'm just building. And it's like, it takes every minute. You got to be really dialed in and focused. And this is a business friend. It's not like a social friend. I mean, a social friend as well, but even kind of like that, chit chat, business, networking, schmooze, whatever, no time for it. It's like every second, just dialed in, super tight. And the old expression about building an airplane as you fly it is legitimately what this is about. There are certain things that, different entrepreneurs, I think, experience differently. It depends really the stage and kind of their previous experiences first. I don't know how first-time entrepreneurs, first-time kids out of school do it. This isn't my first rodeo, and I've been in the active in the business community for a little bit, and it's extremely hard. I just imagine what would have happened had I not had that experience. So I wouldn't have learned lessons from other things, how challenging it is. So it's I have deep respect for entrepreneurs, and we, there's a lot of crazy out there, but in a good way, right? Change makers.
What kind of boundaries? I mean, I know you're fresh out the gate, right? So it's hard to have. I mean, you're kind of at the mercy of the velocity of the business right now. But this is the Creatures of Habit podcast, and we like to talk about habits, rituals, and routines.
Yep.
And sometimes we don't get there. Sometimes, the whole podcast is about habits, rituals, and routines. But it's as an entrepreneur now, in it for a while and have experience and have been around the block a bit and understand that no matter how you slice it, it's going to be hard. Do you have a beginning and end to your day?
Yes. It's very short, the time in between the beginning and end. There's many times when the end is in the AM and the beginning is a few hours after that. But definitely have a beginning and end, and definitely try to create space for other things as well, weekends especially. I think I'm fortunate that culturally, I'm an observant Jew, and therefore the weekends, phones off, computers down, and family time, so, being disconnected every single week for, a full day is godsend. And, that's refreshing. So I think that there's definitely, but, I think my mind is probably racing a majority of the time, but the ability to kind of fence off and do other things is really important to, break it up and stop and come back to it. Sometimes you feel like you need to continue, you must, you can't, you have to see this to the end, whatever problem you're solving or opportunity you're chasing, you got to get to the end, and that momentum, let me just keep on going, but sometimes you just stop and come back to it. It's fresh. So
have you always thought entrepreneurially?
Yeah.
Since you were a kid?
I don't, the kid part, I don't remember as much. I don't know, I was just a kid, baseball, bike riding, I collected business cards with my friend, dumb stuff like that. I don't think there was I wasn't this entrepreneurial kid that was, creating this business or that business. That wasn't my thing. But I guess it's a combination of curiosity and creativity, I would say, is kind of my oxygen, those two things.
And what was the first business you ever created, and or the job that you realized that you were going to be an entrepreneur in?
Oh, the insight for me early on in my journey was probably when I was still in school, and I was, at that time, I was young, and I was also married, and we had 2 children, and I was still in a Talmudic seminary in New Jersey, and we were struggling to make ends meet, obviously, in school and everything like that. And the school had a program which allowed for students in the school to go once a week to give classes and earn a little stipend doing that. And it was very hard to get into this program, and they paid a grand total of $75 a week for this. But I volunteered to go, or I offered. I was so interested in doing it, or desperate, that there was the school was about 75 miles from the city, and there was a new site opening up in Manhattan. And I was I volunteered. I'm going to go there. I'm going to crack that market. I'm going to go, give classes over there. And it was a whole sequence of events. But ultimately, I went from doing that one class that the school was giving out to do, to actually create this whole roster of one-on-one kind of coaching and studying with, professionals and people who have been successful, who wanted to connect and learn more about their Jewish roots. So I took this opportunity to go once a week for an hour to teach, and I created it at the end. I was doing it for 2 full days, and that was unique. I was maybe there were 300 of us doing this, and I was the only person that took it from something in its box and said no, let me see what I could do with this. And that was kind of my first there's something here.
Mm-hmm. And so, and that ultimately became the sheets kind of business?
Yeah, I had met somebody who wanted to study and learn more about his Jewish roots, and he had a textile business. And his business was raw fabric, raw material. And
in the garment industry?
It was non-specific to garment. It could have been in industrial fabrics, anything,
any kind of fabric,
this curtain hanging behind us or whatever, could be for sofa makers or automobile makers or things like that. And his company, all they did was like trade raw material. So like literally like broker from like factories like in India, China, Pakistan, Indonesia, container loads to like big industrial companies here in the US. And like he had offered me a job. He was an elder gentleman and like, you know, pretty successful and like nobody in the business to really like kind of like nurture to help the company continue to grow. And he offered me a job and I was like, you know, forget business school, forget law school. I'm going to go into the schmata business. And yeah, so it kind of like evolved and led to that.
Wow.
Yeah.
I assume there's been some awesome wins and some failures.
Always.
Let's talk about a moment along your journey where you thought it was all over, where you just you had made either a mistake or a bad decision or what you thought might have been a good decision and it just didn't work out. Let's talk about a failure that you had that's a standout.
I think I think for me, a big failure was in the linen business. I was kind of like fascinated by this idea that we were selling to all these mass big retailers, like you name it, like companies that don't exist anymore, like Kmart, and you know people like that, and thousands of doors, as we call it in the industry. And yet I was very proud. We weren't paying any rent and we weren't paying associates. And yet like we had all these people doing this work for us and selling our product and everything like that. And then like kind of got that itch and said, you know what, no, I want to get closer to the customer. I don't have a brand. I want them to know, I want to have that relationship. And I think that the realization of and how challenging that was. And the timing was probably pretty bad. It was like 2008, when it was like 2008 was a tough time. Mm-hmm. And then really stepping into something at not understanding what it would take was like this, like, and investing a lot of time and energy and it's just not tracking. And that was a new feeling for me. It was probably the first time that at like with any meaningful amount of effort or investment, it kind of like, it wasn't going. It wasn't
going to happen.
It wasn't happening. And it was like, you know, and you face that decision, you're like, okay, do I call it or do I keep on going? And like, you know, and then you look back and it's like, did I wait too long to call it? Was it, you know, should I have called it earlier, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that was like it wasn't a fatalistic kind of like business fatalistic moment. Like company was fine, but like I think from a energy and time and self-expectation mm-hmm. and having that failure was like, it was definitely humbling. And, you know, just like this opportunity to reflect and like that not everything is in your control. And number two is that don't hide behind the fact that not everything's in your control and really reflect about and be truthful to yourself about what you didn't do right or what signals did you blow past that like you could have like, you know, I could have done that a little differently. And like, you know, I was like, I made that decision with momentum, but not with clarity. Right. And like,
one of the things that I like to think about in making business decisions, and I heard this a long time ago, and whenever I'm in indecision in business, I always ask myself this question now. Are you procrastinating the truth? Like, Michael, are you procrastinating the truth right now?
I love that.
You know, because like the truth is always going to be a plus sign, right? Like it just is, right?
It's right in front of you.
It's always going to be a positive, no matter how you slice it. Even if it hurts, it sucks, brutal. At the end of the day, the closer you get to the truth, the more success you'll have, right? Because it's the truth. And so I always ask myself, like, dude, are you procrastinating the truth right now? Let's really look at that. Let's talk about how you celebrate the wins. Do you celebrate the wins?
Really. One of the most powerful messages that resonated with me that I experienced was a meeting once at Starbucks with Howard. And it was a small gathering of leaders. And Howard was talking in a very open and vulnerable way. And this was like, I don't know, maybe 2015, 16, I don't remember the year. But at this time, 33,000 stores, maybe 25, 26 billion in revenue, massive company. And Howard's getting emotional. And it's almost like he's tearing up, like leaning in, listening, like, what's going on here? And he says something, and he says, the world would be okay tomorrow without Starbucks. We have to go there every single minute and earn our business. And we've worked so hard for this. And we got to tomorrow go out and start again and earn it again. And he was like, I'm like thinking to myself, first of all, wow, what a powerful message. But then also thinking to myself is like, are you kidding me? Like, you're everywhere. We're in 78 countries at that time, right? Like, it's ubiquitous, right? And everybody like, yeah, so even if things aren't going great, it's still like a massively successful company by every measure. And here was the man who built it and thought about it with genuine fright that it's going to disappear tomorrow. The world could continue fine without Starbucks. And it was like, that left such an impression on me and articulated like a feeling that I had inside. It's that the satisfaction you get out of wins, right? What are you really celebrating? And does it carry forward? And for me, I think that the satisfaction I get or the celebration that I have is the reaffirmation of the insight or the thought that I had early on and was able to get it there. It was like that moment, that's like kind of the gratification. I think that is like, like take Cumulus, we're very young, but I wasn't joking when I said at the beginning, like hearing you talk about your and your wife's experience with Cumulus for the last 3 or 4 months. I don't know you. We're just meeting now for the first time. And yet I started Cumulus with this idea that this is something that's important and people need it and it's going to make a meaningful impact in their lives. And now I'm sitting across from you and you're telling me that exact thing. I go right for that nitro. You think about it, and it's part of your life. It's part of your wife's life. It's part of your routine. I earned a place in your life. That was the original thesis. I don't want to just sell a product. I want to be part of your experience. And when you gave me that feedback, I'm good. It's that unlocking and realizing that what I dreamed of and what I set out to do is manifesting itself one person at a time, one Cumulus at a time. That's like, that's such a big feeling. It's huge. It's huge. It's like bigger than a number.
I know that feeling. It's when somebody, it's one thing you have, I was in the restaurant business for a long time, right? And I had a bunch of restaurants in New York. And at one point, still to this day, I mean, the meatball shop made a big splash on New York City.
It was huge.
It was huge. It was. And you walk into any room, kind of anywhere where there's like a culture, New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, Miami, Austin, Texas, London, and you mentioned, in 2012, 2 years after the meatball shop launch, you mentioned meatball shop. And people will turn around.
Of course, everybody knew it, right?
But it's a place where people come to. It's a place where people come to.
And they crave, and they crave.
And they crave, and they want to be there. They want to come to it, and it was incredible. I mean, I like Meatball Shop is, holds a dear place in my heart. But now with Creatures of Habit and with Cumulus, people have brought you into their home. It's a different experience, right? Like, you've become part of the fabric of their lives. It's a very different experience. I see my Cumulus 14, 15, 30 times a day. You know what I mean? I walk by it every time I walk past my kitchen. I see it. It's right there. Boom. There it is. You know? Creatures of Habit Meal 1. Like, we have thousands of people that eat it every day. It's lined in their pantry.
Yep.
You know? It's a different kind of experience. And so I love when you mention that. You know, what the Howard story, the story of, you know, I don't agree with that. I think he's underestimating Starbucks. I don't think the world would be okay tomorrow if Starbucks went away. I think there'd be a lot of
a long recovery period.
I think people would be pissed.
Yeah.
A lot of people would be pissed.
Yeah.
You know, like, there are people that live by those.
Of course they do.
There's not a single, you know. They created a frappuccino, man. You know, like, it's a lot of it's wild. I ask you that question about, you know, how do you celebrate? Do you celebrate? Because I do find it hard as a creative human that has the audacity to think that an idea that they had in between their two ears would get people excited to want to spend money on it, and not just spend money on it, but like subscribe to something.
Become evangelists.
Become
right?
evangelists. You got to have a lot of audacity, right? You just do. And also, not only is it audacious, but it's like, there's got to be a level of confidence that you can just, from an idea, a thought. You had a thought. This is the beauty of entrepreneurship. You have a thought, and, you know, it starts sitting in a chair or walking down the sidewalk, or, you know, after a conversation, you're like, that you've turned into
something tangible.
Not only tangible, but it's sitting on people's countertops. Right? It's real. It's powerful, and I think it's wonderful, and it's beautiful, and that's why I love entrepreneurs, because, you know, not only is it crazy to think that, you know, whatever this idea that you had could come to fruition and you can actually see it out in the wild, but the pain that you have to go through to get there, right? Like, it's very difficult.
But it's not pain, right? It's not pain.
Well, I think for me, I'm absolutely obsessed with it, and I would imagine you are too. But I would say there are moments where when I feel, you know how many times with Creatures of Habit I thought we were gonna have to go out of business.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah, just the amount of times where I'm like looking at the bank account and I'm like,
okay, now what?
Yeah, like, how are we gonna get through this one? Yeah. And, you know, real fear, full central nervous system just lit up like a Christmas tree, just floating above my desk, being like, oh, how am I gonna get through this? And so I would say that that's pretty damn close emotional, like pain for me. But
let me ask you, after that pain, did that usually unlock an amazing insight?
Always.
Right?
Yes.
If you like embrace that pain, or that like what comes out of it.
That is, in my opinion, you know, what I always say, and I believe it to be true, is most people quit. Right? Most people quit.
Interesting. Yeah.
Endurance is a common, or one of the most common denominators in successful entrepreneurs. They're willing to go the distance and willing to deal with the, you know, sort of abnormal level of stress and anxiety that come with launching a business.
I'm very comfortable in gray. You got to be very comfortable not knowing.
Yeah, and asking for a lot of freaking help too, right? Like I think.
Well, I got a good tip today, right?
Tell me.
On just the physical mailers. I'm like,
they're great.
I'm into that.
And I think especially for your business too, Tell everybody what the business is exactly.
So, sure. Cumulus is a single serve on demand cold brew, nitro cold brew, and cold espresso machine that makes those beverages. So the cold brew, which is normally a very long process to make, you're able to get these beverages just by the push of a button, perfectly chilled every single time in under a minute. And it's, the in-cup quality is like better than a cafe. We like, we're humbled by that. Those aren't my words. It's actually Howard's words. So I'll take it from him. And it's we have a beautiful line of fantastic coffee that has been crafted for cold. So Cumulus as a company, we didn't just say, hey, let's make cold coffee. We took a step back and we said, let's bring everything beautiful and the rich heritage of coffee, but let's start with cold. So we cup, it's called cupping, when we get from the trees, the cherries, and we cup for cold. Today I just did that for a new beautiful coffee that we're going to be releasing and tasting different variations, different roasts on it and everything. So a lot of intentionality around cold. So if somebody craves a cup of cold brew, a nitro cold brew, if they didn't have it, like, what it does, it's transformative. Or if you want a iced latte or a espresso martini, right? You got to start with a cold espresso shot. And that's Cumulus. I think we're the only people in the world that make a cold espresso shot.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah. And Howard put his stamp of approval on it?
Yeah, he's an investor as well. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I just found out someone that's very close to him lives very close to me in my area upstate where I live. I getting into the mind of people like you who you did something really great.
Thank you.
It's great. It's not good. Like, and I'm not just saying that because you're here. Like, I use the fucking thing every day. I love it.
Thank you.
It's great. Do you have like a morning routine that you like to stick to?
Oh, quite so.
Yeah. Oh, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah. It now involves Cumulus.
Mm-hmm.
It took a while. It took a while, for years. It was a hot espresso shop, but now it's a cold Cumulus. But my morning routine is I like to, in my mind, I get up earlier than I think I do. I like to think that I'm getting up like around 5:30. I realistically am close to like 5:45, 5:50. Sneak out of the room. Don't want to wake anybody. And my routine is pretty compact in the morning. I'm usually out of the house within 10 minutes. And I have this like quick routine where I just grab my first Cumulus and I run out. I go early to prayers every morning at 6 a.m. And I do that on my way to work. So I stop at the synagogue and I pray. And then on my drive in, I take time listening to, and I study the Talmud. And the Talmud is this really compelling piece of work that really challenges my mind. So by the time 7:15, 7:30 in the morning, I've spent like about a half hour at prayers, and then in my drive-in, really waking and stimulating my mind with challenging thoughts and complex problems that the Talmud discusses. And then I'm ready to conquer the day. And like it's 7:30 and I'm on my way into the city and I'm good to go.
Do you guys have an office in the city?
Yeah, we're right over in Bryant Park, just a few blocks away from here. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So
I had a really interesting experience that I shared about on social media last week. I've been diving deep into breath work. I don't know if you have any experience with breath work.
No, tell me. As you said it, I just took a deep breath.
Yeah, I saw that. So breath work, there's many different modalities and techniques in breath work, but I was introduced to this breath work style about just under 2 years ago, and it is for me arguably the most impactful, powerful, therapeutic unearthing I've ever experienced.
What do you do?
You breathe, so you do it with a practitioner. I have a coach, and you lie down on your back, you put an eye mask on or something to cover your eyes so you can fully immerse into the breath. And it's a guided experience. It's about 30 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And it's all mouth breathing, and it's circular breathing for 30 minutes straight. So it's like into the stomach like this. It basically looks like this. And you do that for 30 minutes. Into the stomach, into the chest, out the mouth. All mouth breathing.
It's like exercise.
Yeah, it's work. It's called breath work, right? It's actual work. And it is what's happened in these breathwork sessions for me has been monumental. I had my coach actually with me about a week and a half ago. He came to my house upstate and he spent 2 days with me so we can do really focused, deep
breathwork,
intentional. Not only breathwork, but breathwork was a part of it. And I'm Jewish, and in this breathwork, so many things have surfaced in the breathwork for me from my past that I just had never really looked at or didn't know to look at. But what came up for me in this last breathwork session was just an overwhelming amount of shame that I didn't know. I knew it was there, but I didn't know how significant it was. And when I was a kid, growing up in New York, in the city, I went to public school. There were not a lot of Jewish kids. And we played hockey at this park on the east side. And there was a goalie, an older man. We were kids, 12, 11, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And there was this older guy in his probably 30s that would play hockey on the weekends. And he would show up with goalie pads. He only played goalie. His name was Pete. And he was a white supremacist. And he had swastikas on his goalie pads. And he would rant all sorts of anti-Semitic things. And I was terrified to be Jewish. Terrified. I was so scared. I hadn't thought about this in years. And it just showed up in this breath work.
Last week, wow.
Last week. And it scared me so much to be Jewish that now my father's not technically Jewish. My mother is Jewish, so I'm Jewish. Mm-hmm. And I used to hide behind the fact that my father was Italian. My father's mother is from Sicily, Italian, and for years I was scared to be Jewish because these other kids would also make fun of Jews.
Right.
And it left me with this crazy amount of shame. And I didn't know it. And I posted on social media. We did this breath work, and it came to the surface.
Wow. And hit you.
Just hit me.
Huh. Emotional
explosion.
Wow.
Just hysterical, guttural emotion. It was, and that's what this breath work does, by the way. It's insane.
Scary.
It's scary. It's crazy.
I don't know if I want to do it.
You should do it.
I'm scared.
And so I was like, I have to share about this. I have to share about this. I'm Jewish and proud to be Jewish.
Nice.
Why would I be ashamed of who I am? Nice. Why would I let some idiot,
Pete the goalie, like plant this thing that scared me for most of my life? I mean, now when I think back on it, the fear that I had going to play hockey was numbing because I was afraid that, I was a little kid. I probably started playing hockey at that park when I was 10, 11 years old. Oh, wow.
And I was afraid that he was going to I don't know,
he was a kid.
Doing the whole thing.
Wow.
Yeah, really scary. And the other kids would laugh about it. So, you mentioned the synagogue and the Talmud, and I've been listening to this guy who, Modest Yahoo. Do you know who that is?
Yeah, the singer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I've been listening to Modest Yahoo talk about this stuff, and it was just
he's been on a journey.
he's been on a journey, totally.
Yeah,
It just sort of like inspired me. It was interesting how it all happened together. I had this crazy sort of breathwork experience, and then I was listening to this random podcast with Modest Yahoo, and I was like, okay, this is God.
and now in this podcast, a guy with a yarmulke walks in.
Yeah, it's
Like,
just, like
not your everyday occurrence.
this is what's happening right now. Dude, this has been so much fun to have you on the podcast.
Thank you.
You know, and I think
You got great energy.
Thank you, man. Yeah. So do you. As soon as I saw you, I was like, we're gonna have a great conversation. I just knew it. And for the people listening, what would be the best way to engage with either you or your business? What would be the greatest way to follow the journey and potentially experience Cumulus?
It's a cliche to say Instagram, I guess.
No, that's the way. Say that.
That's the. I think Cumulus is a way to stay close and learn. We try to share a lot about, outside of just running the e-commerce business, but share and educate at our website at cumuluscoffee.com, and of course listen to your podcast, right? Like, a banner moment for Cumulus.
Is there a retail play in the works? I'm assuming, or
it's not at the current moment. I think that there's we are more and more getting Cumulus into different environments outside of the home. So people, whether they're going to maybe in their office there'll be a Cumulus, or maybe at the hotel they're staying at, or a restaurant that they're visiting. So more of that is coming. So if somebody's not ready to take the plunge and bring Cumulus and dedicate the counter space like you have in your home, there'll be more and more ways to experience and participate in Cumulus as time goes on. But retail for now is we're going to leave that to Starbucks.
Copy that. Mesh, what a good combo, man. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Of course. It was great to meet you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
So, another great podcast in the books. I know you loved that one. I love having entrepreneurs on the podcast to talk about the journeys of building, creating, stumbling, getting back up, fighting the good fight on a daily basis. It always is inspiring to me, and I know inspiring to you. That's why you guys tune in. Thank you so much for listening to this whole podcast. If you really enjoyed this one, it would mean the world to me if you shared it. Sharing the podcast is the rent I ask you to pay for listening to the podcast. And if you are feeling unbelievably generous, writing us a 5-star review would be primo. Appreciate that. I really would. Hit subscribe. Don't miss an episode. Until the next one, y'all. Peace.